1. At 6 months, the baby should be rolling over, and by now their birth weight has doubled. 2. At 1 year, most children are walking with support. Their birth weight has tripled, and they're saying their first words. 3. At 18 months, they're walking independently, able to throw a ball, and usually have 10 to 25 words in their vocabulary. 4. At 2 years, you'll hear 2-word sentences, a vocabulary of over 50 words, and they can climb stairs. 5. At 3 years, they ride a tricycle and can tell you their age and gender. 6. At 4 years, they hop on 1 foot and can copy a square. 7. At 5 years, they can skip and draw a triangle. 8. School-age children, ages 6 to 12, are in Erickson's stage of industry versus inferiority. Their focus shifts toward peers and school performance. 9. Adolescents, ages 12 to 18, are in identity versus role confusion, and body image becomes the major concern. 10. Object permanence develops around 9 months, and with that comes separation anxiety, which is normal at that stage. 11. Live vaccines such as MMR, varicella, and the intranasal flu should never be given to children who are immunocompromised. 12. Hepatitis B is given at birth at 1 to 2 months and again at 6 months. 13. DTaP requires 5 doses to be complete by kindergarten. 14. Polio, IPV, is given in 4 doses. 15. Hib vaccine prevents meningitis and epiglottitis. 16. Pneumococcal vaccine, PCV13, prevents sepsis and pneumonia. 17. Varicella vaccine is 2 doses, starting after 12 months. 18. Flu vaccine is yearly beginning at 6 months. The live intranasal form is not used in children under 2. 19. Vaccine reactions usually include mild redness and swelling, which are expected. Anaphylaxis is very rare, but if it occurs, epinephrine is required immediately. 20. If parents refuse vaccines, it's important to provide education on the risks and then document their refusal. 21. Epiglottitis is life-threatening. The child will present with drooling, sitting in a tripod position, and stridor. Do not use a tongue depressor because it can cause complete airway obstruction. The priority is to secure the airway, which may require intubation, and start IV antibiotics. 22. Croup, or laryngotracheobronchitis, has that barking cough and inspiratory stridor. Treatment includes cool mist, racemic epinephrine, and steroids. 23. RSV, or bronchiolitis, shows up with wheezing, coughing, and poor feeding. These children need contact and droplet isolation, frequent suctioning, and fluids. 24. Asthma presents with wheezing and prolonged expiration. The first-line treatment for acute attacks is albuterol, and steroids are used for long-term control. 25. Cystic fibrosis involves thick mucus secretions, salty-tasting sweat, and poor weight gain. Management requires aggressive airway clearance, pancreatic enzyme replacement, and supplementation with fat-soluble vitamins. 26. In premature infants, too much oxygen can cause retinopathy of prematurity, so oxygen must be monitored carefully. 27. Tetralogy of Fallot leads to cyanosis and TET spells. Placing the child in a knee-chest position, giving oxygen, and morphine are the key interventions. 28. A patent ductus arteriosus, PDA, is recognized by a continuous machinery-like murmur. It can be treated with indomethacin or surgical ligation. 29. Coarctation of the aorta shows up as high blood pressure in the upper extremities with weak pulses in the lower extremities. It is managed with surgery or balloon angioplasty. 30. Rheumatic fever follows a strep infection and causes migratory arthritis and potential heart involvement. Treatment includes penicillin, aspirin, and careful monitoring of cardiac function. 31. Kawasaki disease causes prolonged fever, rash, and a strawberry tongue. Treatment is IVIG along with aspirin to reduce the risk of coronary artery aneurysms. 32. For congenital heart defects in general, children need fluid restrictions, oxygen monitoring, and clustered care to promote rest. 33. Signs of dehydration in infants include a sunken fontanelle, dry mucous membranes, and absence of tears. Mild cases can be managed with oral rehydration, but severe dehydration requires IV fluids. 34. Celiac disease is gluten intolerant, so wheat, barley, and rye must be avoided. 35. Intussusception presents with current jelly stools and a sausage-shaped abdominal mass. It is treated with an air or contrast enema and surgery if that fails. 36. Hirschsprung disease is suspected when there's no meconium in the first 48 hours and ribbon-like stools. The treatment is surgical removal of the ganglionic bowel segment. 37. Pyloric stenosis shows up with projectile vomiting and an olive-shaped mass in the abdomen. Treatment is surgical pyloromyotomy. 38. A cleft palate makes feeding difficult. Feeding upright with a special nipple and frequent burping helps reduce the risk of aspiration. 39. GERD in infants looks like frequent spitting up. This is managed with small, frequent feeds, thickened formula, and keeping the baby upright after feeding. 40. Failure to thrive is when a child's weight is below the 5th percentile. Always assess feeding technique and rule out neglect or underlying medical problems. 41. Seizures in children require seizure precautions: side-lying positioning, suction available, and never restraining the child. 42. Increased intracranial pressure presents with bulging fontanelle, a high-pitched cry, and sunset eyes. Elevating the head of the bed, avoiding suctioning, and using mannitol if prescribed are the interventions. 43. Meningitis presents with fever, nuchal rigidity, and photophobia. Management requires droplet precautions, IV antibiotics, and close seizure monitoring. 44. Ray's syndrome is encephalopathy with liver involvement, almost always following aspirin use in children with viral infections. This is why aspirin should be avoided in children. 45. Cerebral palsy causes spasticity and motor dysfunction. Physical and occupational therapy, along with medications like baclofen, help improve mobility. 46. Hydrocephalus leads to a bulging fontanelle and rapid head growth. It's managed with a ventriculoperitoneal shunt, and parents must watch closely for infection or shunt malfunction. 47. Type 1 diabetes often presents with polyuria, polydipsia, and weight loss. Management requires insulin therapy and carbohydrate counting. 48. Hypoglycemia looks like shakiness, sweating, and irritability. Juice can correct mild cases, but severe cases may need glucagon. 49. Diabetic ketoacidosis presents with fruity breath and Kussmaul respirations. Treatment is IV fluids, insulin, and careful potassium monitoring. 50. Hypopituitarism is growth hormone deficiency. Treatment is growth hormone replacement. 51. Congenital hypothyroidism presents with lethargy, constipation, and a large tongue. Lifelong levothyroxine is required. 52. PKU, or phenylketonuria, has a musty odor and leads to intellectual disability if untreated. The key is a lifelong low phenylalanine diet. 53. Sickle cell disease causes painful crises due to sickled red cells blocking blood flow. Treatment is aggressive hydration, oxygen, and opioids for pain. 54. Hemophilia is a clotting disorder. Treatment includes factor VIII replacement, avoiding IM injections, and using a soft toothbrush. 55. Iron deficiency anemia causes pallor and fatigue. Iron supplementation with vitamin C is effective, but excess milk intake should be avoided since it interferes with absorption. 56. Leukemia presents with bone pain, bruising, and fever. Treatment involves chemotherapy and strict infection precautions. 57. Wilms tumor is a kidney tumor in children. If an abdominal mass is found, never palpate it to avoid rupture. The child should be prepped for surgical removal. 58. Acute glomerulonephritis often follows strep infection and presents with hematuria and edema. Treatment involves a low-salt diet and blood pressure monitoring. 59. Nephrotic syndrome shows up with proteinuria, edema, and low albumin. Management is steroids, salt restriction, and sometimes fluid restriction. 60. Enuresis or bedwetting is normal until age 5. Beyond that, behavioral strategies or desmopressin may be needed. 61. A urinary tract infection in children may present only as fever. Treatment is antibiotics, fluids, and teaching proper front-to-back wiping. 62. Varicella or chickenpox causes a vesicular itchy rash. The child must be isolated until all lesions are crusted, and aspirin should be avoided. 63. Measles or rubeola has Koplik spots in the mouth along with cough and coryza. These children need isolation and vitamin A supplementation. 64. Mumps presents with swollen parotid glands. Management is hydration and analgesics. 65. Pertussis, or whooping cough, causes paroxysmal coughing fits. The child needs droplet isolation and antibiotics. 66. Scarlet fever shows strawberry tongue and a sandpaper-like rash. Treatment is penicillin. 67. Hand-foot-mouth disease causes blisters on hands, feet, and mouth, along with fever. Treatment is supportive. 68. Developmental dysplasia of the hip is seen as uneven thigh folds and limited abduction. A Pavlik harness is used to maintain proper alignment. 69. Scoliosis is lateral curvature of the spine. It's managed with a brace, and severe cases may need surgery. 70. Clubfoot is a twisted foot deformity. Serial casting and sometimes surgery are required. 71. Osteogenesis imperfecta causes brittle bones. Handle the child very gently to prevent fractures. 72. Fractures in children often present as green stick fractures. Always check neurovascular status and monitor the cast. 73. For toy safety, children under 4 years should not have toys with small parts due to choking risk. 74. Lead poisoning is a risk in older homes with lead paint. Screening and chelation therapy are used if levels are high. 75. Car seat safety requires rear-facing seats until at least 2 years of age. 76. Burns in children should raise concern for abuse if the burn has a clear, patterned shape. 77. Child abuse may show injuries in different stages of healing. Reporting is mandatory. 78. Stranger anxiety is normal at 6 to 9 months. 79. Separation anxiety peaks during toddlerhood. 80. School-age children value their peers, so involving them in their care improves cooperation. 81. Adolescents are preoccupied with body image and at risk for high-risk behaviors. 82. Acetaminophen overdose is treated with N-acetylcysteine. 83. Ibuprofen should not be given to children under 6 months. 84. Aspirin is avoided in children with viral illnesses due to the risk of Ray's syndrome. 85. Digoxin in children should be held if the heart rate is less than 90 in infants or less than 70 in older children. 86. After organ transplant, immunosuppressants put the child at high risk for infection, so strict precautions are necessary. 87. For pain control, the Flax's scale is used in infants and the Wong-Baker Faces scale in young children. 88. Lumbar puncture requires a side-lying fetal position, and afterwards the child should remain flat to prevent headaches. 89. IV therapy in children often uses EMLA cream to numb the site, and lines must be secured carefully. 90. Oral medications in infants should be given with a syringe into the side of the cheek, never added to a bottle. 91. Failure to thrive may be a sign of neglect. Always assess feeding patterns and the parent-child interaction. 92. Autism spectrum disorder is characterized by preference for routine and minimal stimulation. 93. ADHD presents as impulsivity and inattention. Structure and stimulant medications are the mainstays of treatment. 94. Down syndrome is recognized by flat facial features, hypotonia, and an increased risk of heart defects. 95. Turner syndrome involves short stature and a webbed neck, treated with growth hormone and estrogen therapy. 96. Fragile X syndrome is associated with intellectual disability, long face, and large ears. 97. Child life specialists are invaluable in helping children cope with hospitalization. 98. Therapeutic communication means giving school-age children and adolescents choices whenever possible to give them a sense of control. 99. Play therapy helps toddlers and preschoolers express feelings. 100. Pediatric end-of-life care requires honesty in age-appropriate language and always involving the family in decisions and care.